Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Difference Maker here, coming to you with a YouTube clip. First Thessalonians chapter 2 is what we are going to go over. Um, I hope you did your reading and your studying. Here we go, and I apologize, my children are downstairs playing, so just bear with it. Alright. A little background information here. The First Thessalonians was written in 51 AD in what is believed to be Corinth. Paul was in Corinth at the time that he wrote this letter. Now, the city of Thessalonica, it received its name from the Macedonian king Cassander, named after his wife Thessalonica, the daughter of Philip II and stepsister to Alexander the Great. Now, also because the father, Philip II, he had heard, when he had heard of her birth, he remembered that was the day that he gained victory over the Thessalonians. So that was another reason why she had that name, Thessalonica. Now, the city, number one, was very populous and wealthy. It was a harbor city with import and export as its trade. A principal station. It was a principal station on the highway called the Via Egnatia. So their trade also came through a highway that ran through it, and that was called the Via Egnatia. Forgive me for pronunciation. Also, too, there were many Jews as well as Greeks that dwelled in this place. In Acts 17, verses 1 through 3, Paul went 3 Sabbath days to reason with the Jews about Jesus Christ. Now, you also notice that he was reasoning with the Jews about Christ. He was not worshiping with them. He was reasoning to them about Jesus Christ and his resurrection. So those Sabbatarians who use that verse to try to say we're to worship on the Sabbath. No, Paul on the Sabbath days was preaching the gospel. I want to note that. Not worshiping. It was also Thessalonica, what you call quote-unquote free city and autonomy. It prided itself on being self-governing and having its own constitution. Now, the people there were very wealthy, as I said before, very prosperous. They had people that would meet, social gatherings, just prosperous people, wealthy people. That was the social norm. Now, the church of Thessalonica was made up of Jewish Christians as well as Gentiles or Greeks, and many women who had been converted. Though through suffering and hardships and persecutions, their faith emerged well. So they went through some hard times, but yet their faith sounded out greatly. They had a faith that caused them to turn from their idols unto the Lord. Look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 9 to see that. Now, let's get into chapter 2 of 1 Thessalonians. Now, from chapter 1, Paul is continuing to discuss his behavior towards them and giving thanksgiving for his behavior in them receiving the word of God. Now, what is he facing here? What's the opposition? Well, it appears, and this is just, speculation, that there were some dark whisperings going around about Paul. So here's the situation that's happening in chapter 2. It suggested that some of the wealthy women's husbands were saying things about Paul. They were unbelievers that were members of the church and could have been saying some things about Paul. Some of the things that they could have been saying, Paul is a money-hungry preacher, money-hungry apostle. He's trying to take y'all money. Now really see this thing. You're in a town that's very prosperous. And here comes the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's going to mess with people's money. Do you see it? You see it? Okay. He also said that he was a flatterer. He flattered people. Another problem that could have been happening is the fear, not the fear, but the dangers of returning to idol worship or a sinful lifestyle. So that's the problem, the opposition that Paul was facing as he's writing this letter. What would these things cause? It would cause the Thessalonians, to doubt whether Paul was a true apostle. So what Paul is doing is, and you will see this, he's giving characteristics of a true man of God.